Hello everyone, SpiffyMan255 here again today for another pointless adventure into something that's really inconsequential. Sorry this video is a little late, I've been doing shit. Anyway, so I was talking to somebody the other day about gender studies and my experiences in it. And maybe in a future video I will get into my experiences with obtaining a gender studies minor with my degree as a cisgendered heterosexual white male in these courses. I think it could lead to some interesting stories and maybe be kind of surprising to some people for unexpected reasons. But throughout my time in gender studies, I feel like I was able to kind of speak out and challenge ideas and things like that pretty regularly without getting beaten down for it. You know, it wasn't what you typically see in social justice online or in the media, which is why I was so taken aback by it when I started looking into it independently. But there was one thing in these courses that really seemed to stir up the ire of people to the point where I was not allowed to speak about it. And it's pretty interesting. I wasn't lambasted for, you know, discussing things like the wage gap or male privilege or, you know, domestic violence or anything like that. All those kind of led to kind of reasonable, rational discussions where, you know, I learned some things that I didn't know. Maybe I helped some people understand perspectives that they hadn't looked at before or anything like that. But the one thing that I was never allowed to speak about was the concept of the friend zone. The friend zone. And of all the hot topic issues, the friend zone was the thing that I would get browbeaten for. And I got a particular notion about the friend zone, but I never got to really discuss it because I was always just kind of shouted at. So why was I attacked for the friend zone? I have no idea. You know, maybe there's something about that. But typically in these courses, with a few exceptions, I was the only male in the room. So maybe it can be difficult to help people see things from that perspective. But since I don't have anybody here to shout me down, I'm going to get into it. So, in my opinion, the friend zone can kind of be broken down into two categories. A first category, I think, really kind of applies to why the friend zone was never allowed to be discussed. Because there's a certain particular idea about it that I feel like feminists have, which is this idea that all the concept of the friend zone is the idea that a man is entitled to a woman, whether romantically or sexually, because of, I don't know, because he did some things, because he was being nice, you know, because he jumped through hoops and things like that. And then I'll source some stuff down below that kind of is representative of the kind of arguments that I was faced with when I would bring up the friend zone. But, so where to get it? I think there's two types of dudes who are friend zoned. There are two types of friend zoning, we'll say. And the first type, the first category, we'll call the you did it to yourself jackass category. And this group is the dude who kind of falls for a girl, and then he kind of orbits around her, and he does things for her, and he, you know, rubs her feet, stuff like that, but he is just a really good friend. And he's kind of resentful of this, you know. He's basically doing boyfriend work with none of the boyfriend benefits, and this is the way he sees it. And I think, on the one hand, you have guys whose intentions are fairly noble, and they're just not very good communicators. So, you know, to him this is courtship, right? This is the courtship ritual that he has to go through to make this woman attracted to him. He's trying to display his fitness as a mate. But the problem with that is that these men often cannot display confidence very well. So what you get is a guy who is forcing himself to jump through hoops to try to get this girl's attention, and she really doesn't notice it. And so this can end in one of two ways. Either he finally gets up the courage to look at this woman and say, hey, you know what, I'm romantically interested in you. However he may say that. And then she rejects him. And so the one of two ways that this can happen is that he basically will say, well, you know what, I do all this stuff for you. What the hell? What the fuck is this? And he basically goes berserk on this woman because he has invested so much energy and time and effort and resources into just trying to make her see what a good guy he is. And this would be the category that I feel like the feminists are talking about when, they say a guy feels he is entitled to this woman because of the things that he does, because he does basically what he's supposed to do. He's being a decent friend, right? So, on the other hand, you could have a guy who gets this rejection and, the woman, whether she lets him down easy or whatever, he just basically says, okay, that's fine. Then he distances himself from the woman. And again, this is seen as a type of entitlement, which I don't think is correct. I think here you have a man who has unrequited feelings for a woman, and he understands that not only might it be awkward for him to be around, but it's also going to be very difficult for him to kind of get over these feelings or get over this woman if he is constantly around her and they're constantly engaging in, fairly intimate activities that friends might engage in, talking things out, becoming closer, understanding, wants and desires and hates and struggles and things like that. These kind of intimate settings are not good when one person is romantically interested and the other is not. So that's the first type. That's the you did this to yourself jackass category. And I feel like this is where the majority of your entitlement talk comes from. But in my opinion, there is another category. A more malevolent category of the friend zoning. And I think that this is one that doesn't get talked about a lot. And I spoke a little bit about it in my toxic femininity video, because this is a clear expression of toxic femininity. You have this type of woman who we'll call the cold-hearted bitch, friend zoning type of woman, who will have a guy who has placed himself in the friend zone, but then she recognizes that he has feelings of attraction for her, whether they be romantic or sexual. She recognizes that he has some form of feelings towards her, and then she uses those feelings to get things from him. This is the type of woman who will use her sexuality or use this man's romantic interest in her to basically manipulate him into buying her things. Or, this is the type of woman who will, my brakes are bad, could you come replace my brakes? And maybe we'll watch some Netflix after. But the Netflix never happens, you know what I'm saying? This is the type of person who will take advantage of someone's romantic interest in them and take advantage of the fact that these people cannot communicate their feelings. And ultimately, I feel like this one is far worse, and I feel like it happens a lot more than feminists talk about. So, this kind of coincides with the fact, this notion that women are always victims. Women can be fucking scary when they do things like this. So, I feel like ultimately you have this idea that men place themselves in the friend zone, but to say that the friend zone does not exist is disingenuous at best. So really what I think this boils down to, honestly, is that women can build friendships. Women can build friendships with anyone, and they're social. Men often have trouble because they are expected to be independent all the time. Men have trouble forming close social bonds with people. Often you don't see men doing kind of intimate things together. You don't see men really sharing deep feelings with one another a whole lot. Women do that with each other all the time. So when a woman is friends with a man, it seems to me that especially younger women will kind of expect men, their close guy friends, quote unquote, to fill the same role as their female friends. So I think it's really important for women to understand that when you have really close guy friends, there is a significant chance, if that is a heterosexual male, that he has thought about having sex with you before. I've said this to women in the past, and they kind of don't believe me, or they think it's kind of gross, or something like that. But it's true. You know, if you're a young woman who is attractive of marriageable age, and you have close male friends who are unattached and heterosexual, then chances are they've thought about having sex with you. It's not gross, it's just natural. But you need to understand that. You know, I've read a lot of scientific research on the idea of, you know, opposite sex platonic friendships and the motivations and the factors that go into what people perceive when it comes to opposite sex friendships. But maybe I'll get into that in another video. The science is pretty deep on it. But so I guess I'll close that out here. This will be a short little snack video for you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Share this video around with 10 billion of your fellow human beings. If you don't want to do that, just kind of give me an upvote, downvote, and if you disagree, especially if you disagree, leave me a comment down below. We'll have a discussion about it. Till then, I'll catch you guys next week.